Hi, today we are going to discuss about how to create Java class either in WCM use POJO model or using Sling model. So when we are creating any AEM component, most of the cases we always create a model that could be either WCM use POJO model or Apache Sling model. However, today's approach, the recommended approach from Adobe is Adobe Apache Sling model approach, where we rely heavily on the annotation based. But in this example, I'm going to show side by side both the approach WCM use POJO versus Apache Sling model, and we can compare both of them. What is the difference between those two? In this example also, I am taking only very simple example where I'm creating a component with two dialog field. One is title, another is description. Both are text type. However, in your example, you can take as a number, integer, date type. Everything is possible. I'm just making as a simple example. If you need a complex example also, we'll do one more video on that. So if you see, there are two component in my content tree. If you see, I have created two component. One is Sling model, another is WCM use POJO component. Okay, now let's see the annotation, sorry, let's see the code level of implementation. So here I have created two component. One is Sling model, another is WCM use POJO model. If I go to the Sling model and WCM use POJO model, the HTML is almost same. Everything is same. The HTML is completely same. However, if you see, only the my Java class is changing. Here it is WCM use POJO model, and here it is Sling model. But everything else is completely same. These are actually placeholder view, so you can ignore them. Okay, here also I have put only placeholder view. You can ignore these as well. If you are wondering what is a placeholder view, you can watch my previous video to understand and know about it. So now we'll move to the Sling model or the WCM use POJO model, the Java part. So just before moving, I'm just accepting only two of the field. And if we go to the CQ dialog box, it has title, description, and the same thing. It is completely equal. It's the same file. So there is no difference of the CQ dialog. The only difference is here I am calling Sling model, and in the WCM use POJO, I'm calling WCM use POJO model. Now, if I go to the WCM use POJO model, this is one of the simplest example of I have created that WCM use POJO model. So I have created a use Java class that extends WCM use POJO class that is there in the Adobe CQ sitely. Okay. And it's when we are extending it, we have to override one of the method called activate. Okay. You have to write a method called activate, and you can annotate with it override. Okay, and inside the activate method we have to use something called get properties. It is almost equal to the same that we are using that properties dot something in the title. Similarly, this we have a method that is actually coming from the WCM use POJO class. We can use something called get properties dot get, where we are asking we need one of the attribute, and you can give the default value if it is not appearing, or you can give yeah, most likely default value only you can provide. If default value is not there, by default you can give null. Okay, so if this title is not available inside that CQ dialog value, the title attributes value is not there, then by default what will be the value we are going to assign it. For that, the default value is need to be provided. Okay, and I have taken two getter methods so that I can call this particular model from my sitely to access the title and the description information. Okay, now the same implementation we are going to see in the Sling model. In the Sling model, we have to create a class. You can use the interface approach. I have already given that interface approach in my previous video related to nested multi-field, so you can look it up. Right now I am just creating a standard class approach. Okay, I am creating a class, and I'm annotating with an annotation called at model. Remember, do not get confused for the annotation. Some of the annotation comes from Java X API, and some of the annotation are coming from the Apache Sling Resource API. Okay, so based on that, you have to consider, and in case there are any mismatch of the annotation, that might not work. So just be careful about the annotations as well. I'll leave this example and my GitHub URL as well in the description. If you want to compare, you can just visit the GitHub URL to compare as well. Okay, so here I have created a Sling model class, which has to be annotated with at models, and we have to provide an attribute called adaptables. Okay, by default, adaptables value is, I mean, you can provide resource.class because we are trying to get a node as a resource. Okay, so in Sling API, everything considered as a resource. That's where we do have a class called resource.class that is coming from the Apache. And once we provide this, other than the resource, there are other classes also you can adapt your class to. Even you might have seen example related to HTTP Sling servlet. So those also can be uh, mm, annotated or made as a adaptable. But if that is required, so if you need any information from the request, then only you need to do. But by default, you can go for resource.class. And there is a default injection strategy I'm providing that is optional. That means any of these information, this title or description, is not available in the CQ dialog box. So those are not mandatory, those can be null. That means those are optional. By default, we can consider as null. Okay, then there is a method called activate. I have written activate here just to mimic the same method, but it is not mandatory to have the method name is activate only. It can be something called init as well. So I can give init, I can give some method name. There is no restriction on the method name. However, in the WCM use POJO model, because we are inheriting, we have to have the method name as activate only. Okay, if I hover right, if you can see, this is coming from, go to super implementation, this is coming from the WCM use POJO API. Okay, and this use POJO is implementing use interface. Okay, I'm not going to this level. Let's be focused on this only. So here we can have only activate method as the name for WCM use POJO concept, but in case of Sling model, you can have any name as long as it is annotated with at post construct annotation. So what is at post construct? Basically, whenever your class is getting all these value instantiated, anything you wanted to do with these attribute, these you can do within the this particular method, which is annotated by the post construct annotation. Okay, these are simply getter methods. I have already done the same here as well, just to access the values of our attributes. However, the only change is here, see, to get the title, we had to use get properties dot get this methods. However, here we don't need to do those get attribute, rather than we rely on directly as at inject at value map. I have given two example annotation. You can use either at inject or at value map. However, it is some cases it is preferred to use at value map value. Okay. Here I am just doing one more just logic to mimic what we can do inside the post construct method. If you see here, right, I am trying to get the value of the title and description. I'm not doing anything else, and then I'm just returning here. However, if those these two line execution is being done by these two annotation. Okay, so these annotation are taking care of getting the value of the title and description. We don't need to do it manually within the post construct method. So your post construct method, even if you do not have any logic, you cannot have, you don't need to have this method. When you need to have this method, let's assume I am trying to inject the title, but I need the title in a uppercase. So once the title is injected, if we want to do any logic on top of this attribute, then we can do here. Okay, we can inject resource resolver. So all of other complex logic also we can do in the Sling model as well. and the same is possible in the WCM use POJO model, the way you were doing in the Sling model. Similarly, we can do it here. However, the difference is Sling model is heavily rely on the annotation where automatically it will be injected. But in case of use POJO, we have to rely on the inheritance concept to get the values. Okay. So these are the two differences between Sling model versus use POJO model, and you can see the examples. I mean the APIs. We don't need this. I was just writing for example. So you just need this much. Okay. Make sure you are using proper import statement. Then only it will work. Then let's go to our here. Okay. So I'm providing two of the values. So it is empty one. I'm just opening this. WCM use POJO model. I'm giving some value, some description, and it is appearing the same way I have given here also. This is Sling model and some description. Okay, I'm going to the publisher mode and I'm reloading, and I'm able to see my title and description, and for both the cases. Now, you might be asking why Sling model has been introduced. So during 6.1, I think still 6.1 and 6.2 heavily used. I mean, developers were still used WCM use POJO model. Even today, it can be used. It is not deprecated yet. So you can still use WCM use POJO model. But after 6.1, 6.2, Adobe started promoting Sling model as the default or recommended approach to do it, because it comes with annotation. It increases the productivity, and we do not need to rely on restriction like we have to use a specific method and we have to implement a specific class, then only we will be able to get. So that those kind of limitation that gets eradicated, or that is no longer there as part of the annotation based approach. Okay. So yeah, this with this we came to end of this video. Let me know if how did you feel about the video. If you have any feedback, please put in the comment, and if you have any other details about this particular concept, please put your feedback at the comment section. It'll help others, and even I will also learn from your feedback. Thank you.